I don't shame easily. I've spent a lifetime immunizing myself to shame. I've been through various movements in the socio-political sphere, and I've been shamed from every angle imaginable, and I've turned it into a spiritual practice that I'm quite proud of. So I can literally say, do anything, and remain impervious to shame. But I push it. Push it to the limits. I'm often reminded of those Tibetan yogis, very advanced practitioner adepts. They're striving for the highest attainment in some particular practice, and so they meditate in graveyards. To familiarize themselves with death. To die before they die. To die to the attachments that keep them clutched in identification with this body bag. I'm inspired by these Mahasiddhas, these Mahabodhisattvas of the Far East, of the Himalayan Orient, of the Tibetan plateau. So what I did was I swam in a reservoir of pig shit to prove to myself my own immortality vis-a-vis shame. I had been alerted to these vast reservoirs of pig shit by watching a video. An interview between Del Bigtree, who is an investigative journalist par excellence, independent, on the fringe, in the terra incognita of truth and lies. He was interviewing Zach Bush, MD. Zach Bush, MD, was talking about these ecosystems of viruses and bacteria, and there were these reservoirs of pig shit in North Carolina. Hundreds of millions of gallons of pig shit, because these pig shit cannot be taken across state lines, and it can't be drained into the local water source, whether it be a river or lake, anything like that. So they have to build these man-made reservoirs for pig shit. And I thought to myself, there is probably no greater practice than swimming in pig shit and filming the experience for all to see and slapping that on to YouTube and BitChute and Vimeo and Dailymotion. Because I wanted to prove to myself, A, whether I could endure the shame, B, whether I could endure the smell, and C, whether I would remain healthy, not just physiologically, but spiritually. Could I out-death death by swimming in pig shit? It's also a protest, I must say. It's a protest. Because those reservoirs, those hundreds of millions of gallons of pig shit, are the toxic residue of the CAFOs, which are these centralized animal feeding operations where you have thousands tens of thousands of animals siloed in these narrow cages where they can hardly even move. And they're there because we love bacon. And I love bacon. So I was having a protest against my own appetite for swine. So you can see that the 5D chess game of my own spiritual achievement, my own spiritual aspiration, the raising of the Buddhi mind, have you ever swam in pig shit? I'm talking to you. Why would you? Why wouldn't you? If you wanted to go face to face with the great death, as we are now, if you wanted to prove to yourself how enlightened you could be. Because in moments like that, where you're just doing the backstroke of pig shit, trying to prove your virility vis-a-vis viruses, what is spiritual realization in that moment? What is it? What is enlightenment there? No one will ever know about it. Unless, of course, you make a video and throw it on YouTube. But no one will ever know about it in that moment. You may potentially die in that moment, to contract some kind of virus, a bacteria, something, hemorrhage, an aneurysm. There, in a reservoir of hundreds of millions of gallons of pig shit, with hundreds of thousands of pigs everywhere around you in this forbidden, remote facility of pigs, in an obscure, undisclosed location in North Carolina. I wanted to see what I was made of. Prove my mettle to myself. Understand the very fiber of my soul. The essence of my authentic self. Could I swim in pig shit, and what would I prove to myself? Am I as great as the Buddha? As the Dalai Lama? As all the spiritual luminaries that I so revere? Am I just a spiritual being having a physical experience? Or will I become so overwhelmed by the feces going through every pore that all my spirituality will be nullified in a moment? It's like that Vietnamese monk on the streets during the Vietnam War, protesting and lighting himself up and just crumbling there. He was in his 80s, 90s. He's in nirvana, and poof, he was gone. The gasoline and the flames consumed him. That's what I want to do. I want to prove to myself, how spiritual am I? Am I a spiritual being just having an experience on this corporeal plane of manifestation? Or am I only this body and nothing more? I figure the greatest test of that is to swim in a reservoir of pig shit. And I'll tell you what I discovered. I still have no shame. In fact, I kind of doubled my capacity for shame, which was already virtually unlimited. I proved my own vanity by saying to myself I was devising the ultimate spiritual test. And I passed. And now I just want another spiritual test. And if I really am not ever going to be satisfied with my spiritual test, then this is just total vanity. I'm a charlatan of the first degree. I pretend to be illuminated, but really I'm just a spiritual junkie looking for the next test of my own realization. If I were to be so enlightened, why couldn't I just be happy with who I am? Why do I need to be in the perpetual seeker mode? The seeker is the sought. And yet I need to go swim in this reservoir of pig feces as a protest for CAFOs and the mistreatment of millions of animals and our predilection for bacon. There's so many ways to test ourselves, or why do we test ourselves? Why am I testing to see if I'm just enlightened? Why not just be enlightened? Well, I'll tell you why. I'm bored. When I woke up almost 20 years ago, I was so happy that I had been roused from the nightmare that was plaguing every waking moment. And now it's like, what do I do with my time? I'm awake, I'm enlightened. Suppose I should just test my limits, excel, maximize my potential, actualize my higher self, swim in a reservoir of pig shit. It was really foul. Indescribably, horrifically foul. I thought to myself, how can I commercialize this? How can I sell this? An Iron Man program, perhaps? Getting in touch with your divine feminine, perhaps? There's always something that you can put in a bottle. And I figured I would put the pig shit in a bottle. Pig Shit Enlightenment by Mark Benet. But who's gonna buy my wares? You know, the advertising campaign, the copy I'd have to write, the promotional advertisements. Going on Oprah and Ellen DeGeneres and all these people talking about my new product, pig shit, for enlightenment. Nobody wants pig shit, nobody wants enlightenment. So I think that what I learned is that these Tibetan lamas and adepts and yogis and mahasiddhas and mahabodhisattvas, they were all vain motherfuckers. And if they were alive today, they would have done exactly what I did. They would be meditating in graveyards. Not those dudes thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. No. They would have done what I did. I'll never get that back, that time. That time is over. It's kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio when he did The Revenant. He said it was one of the most life-changing experiences he'd ever had. The most intense filming experience he'd ever had. But he'd never do it again. And I thought about that a lot. And part of me is like, I'll never do that. I'll never swim in a reservoir of pig shit again. But that might just be the challenge. To do that every single day. To start a Patreon campaign, a GoFundMe campaign, where I do a live video of me diving buck naked into that reservoir of pig shit, meditating there, because it's not deep. I could be in there and it would come right up here to my nostrils. And I might have a snorkel so I don't have to breathe in it. And have people support me in my spiritual endeavors. Because I do think that if you know something is only going to be a one-time occasion, it's easy to transcend it. But if you were to spend your life doing it, that's when it gets so formidable and forbidding. every day to swim in the picture of life and to realize enlightenment. All of a sudden, it's less about vanity. And it's about barely surviving, because I'm not going to have a lot of subscribers on my YouTube channel if that's what I'm doing every day. And how many people really want to support that on Patreon or GoFundMe? So there I am out there every day, swimming in pig shit, meditating in pig shit, for the rest of my life, for another 50 years, to prove to myself that I don't need to prove to myself anything. That I'm good enough just as I am. And I don't need to aspire to anything great. I can just swim in pig shit every day. For multiple hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. It's comparable to a corporate position, 50 hours a week. I get up in the morning, I have my coffee and my cornflakes, maybe take a power bar, get in the buck, and dive in. Swim around and stay there for 8 hours, 12 hours. A retreat in Zen monasteries, they call it a sesshin, where you go a whole week without talking. You don't even look at people, you don't do reading, you don't go online. Focused. And I think if I were to put myself to that degree of challenge, where I could get nothing out of it because it would never end. That day in, day out, I would just swim in pig shit. Shit in pig shit. Breathe, even eat. That I would truly begin to understand what it was like to be a pig. The lowest of the low. The animal that's kept in a silo. The animal that's raised in captivity, born and dies in captivity, only for the sake of its meat. And that it doesn't have anything to aspire to, and that its perfect being is enlightenment, except it was born, raised, and died in a cage for the sake of bacon. How could that be its enlightenment? So there you see the perpetual conundrum. That if I were to just meditate in a reservoir of pig shit 50 hours a week for 50 years to prove to myself that I had nothing to prove, I would be enlightened. And it would be so original and yet so mundane, so commonplace and yet so transcendental, so disgusting and yet so ecstatic, so banal yet incomparably sublime, so eternal and so constricted by time. If you know what I mean and you would like to support me, I can send you an email, and I'll probably be creating newsletters to the effect. And I can give you my day by day, month by month, year by year, decade by decade progress. But what you're going to start to see is that my imagination is going to go through the roof. Because with all that biome, that exotic microbiome, that ecosystem of bacteria and viruses, with 10 to the 15th power of viruses and bacteria, that my entire being is going to be interpenetrated with so much life that I don't know what I'm going to become. And even though I can't possibly imagine surviving 50 hours a week for 50 years, swimming in a reservoir of pig shit, I will have these incredible microscopic friends to accompany me. And maybe you will be there too, to accompany me. Because if I can do it, you sure as hell